I've got questions and answers from the NINC conference I just attended, but before we jump in, I want to get like a little bit vulnerable with you if I can. So for this YouTube channel, I felt the need to be kind of polished and put together on these videos, editing out the filler words, making sure that I didn't have pauses that were too long, doing tons and tons of retakes. And what I found is the best performing video that I have is the one where Jessica was in here and we were just having a conversation about her author business and her systems. And I think people just like people who are being humans. Imagine that. So I think I'm going to try doing a more informal, just unscripted. I'm going to do very minimal edits to these videos. I'm not going to worry about B-roll or anything like that. I might still put the little progress meter. I'm just going to talk, be more, I guess, podcast style. If you hate this, please tell me. If you like this better, please tell me that too, because it helps me know what direction to take the YouTube channel. I think this is going to let me do two things. One, it's going to let me post more consistently if I'm not having to edit for 2 hours for a 10-minute video and having to do tons of retakes. But then the other thing is I think it's going to actually give more interesting videos. And that's hard to say. And maybe it's like an imposter syndrome. Maybe I need to like get on my therapy couch here for a second, but it's like it's hard to believe that just being me would be more interesting to people than being a polished professional version of me. So I'm going to get over myself. I'm just going to do this video for you. All right, let's jump in. So I was at the NINC conference, that's Novelist Inc. Last week. I got to talk for like 2 hours on business growth, scaling, metrics, taxes, and everything. And as you would guess, I had a lot of questions after that talk, a lot of them related to taxes. I'm assuming that if I got those questions at NINC, that a lot of you probably have the same questions. Or if you were at NINC and you happen to join the channel from there and you want a recap of what those questions were, here this is. So I've got this very high-tech list here of questions that I got. First question on here was, how do you know what your compensation is at the end of the year to be able to contribute to a retirement account? This came up because we talked about different retirement accounts, and a lot of them are based on the amount of money you make. So it's a percentage of income sometimes that you can contribute, or if your income is above a certain level or below a certain level, you can or can't contribute to these. The answer is you don't. A lot of times you just have to wait until the end of the year, or if it's an account like an SEP that you can contribute to after the end of the year, then you have to wait until you're done with all your numbers so that you can know how much you can contribute. That's why I really like SEPs, because with an SEP, if you're an LLC, if you're not an S Corp, then you have until the extended deadline of your tax return to contribute to your SEP and still have it count for the previous year's taxes. So for example, today is September 20 something. You have until October 15th to contribute to your SEP and still have it count to your 2024 tax return that you haven't filed yet. You wouldn't do that throughout the year because you don't know what your taxable income is going to be, your SEP contributions, or a percentage of your income. So you don't have to know what it's going to be. And even if you're doing like one of these, a 401k that you contribute to at the end of the year, then you can wait until you get to the end of the year to figure out like, what's my income going to be? How much can I contribute? You make that estimate there. All right, so that's that. Next question was, what is the minimum amount of income that you need to make before you have to file as a business? I think the question was like, if I start selling books and I only made a couple of bucks, do I have to put that on my taxes? Yes. The minimum amount of income you have to make before you have to start paying taxes is $1. As soon as you start selling anything or getting paid for anything, it's considered taxable income. Now, you might have expenses that can offset it and you should deduct those, but there's no magic threshold. You might not get a 1099 until you reach a certain level of income, but it doesn't matter. Whether or not you get a 1099, you're still supposed to pay taxes on that income. The other direction this might have gone is they might have been asking, what's the minimum amount of income I should make before I file my business as its own entity, like as an S Corp? It's a totally separate question. I think maybe we'll do another video on that. It's going to be dependent upon how much you can save in taxes by being an S Corp versus all the cost involved with an S Corp. So that number is a moving target for everybody. I don't want to give like a blanket statement here. So yeah, we're going to do another video specifically on S Corps, but if it's about how much do you need to make before you pay taxes? $1. You have to pay taxes on virtually everything you make. Do you divide income and expenses by source, like Amazon versus Audible versus Shopify, where you just lump everything together? For this, it depends. For a lot of authors, you have the data on the source of your income somewhere else. So, like if you're doing Shopify, you can go into Shopify and get a breakdown of all the different things that you sold. If you're doing Amazon, you can even get stuff there. You can get breakdowns of all that stuff. So in QuickBooks, do you really need to know how much of your income was from ebooks or from audiobooks or from Amazon or this or that? Maybe, not necessarily. What I like to do as kind of an intermediate step is I code all the sales to just sales, one category. But I will show where the sale came from as the customer. So if it's an Amazon sale, Amazon's the customer. If it was from Shopify, I'll put Shopify as a customer. For some clients, we'll go a step further and we'll actually put a different account for like audiobook sales versus ebook sales versus paperback. That gets a little bit too detailed sometimes for QuickBooks, but sometimes that nuance helps. On the expense side of things, it gets kind of difficult to track those separately, but I would have like a publishing bank, not publishing bank account, a publishing expense category, and then sub accounts for translations, for audiobook narration, for cover design, for those types of things. So you can start seeing that. So you can see, okay, I spent this much to produce an audiobook or to produce this translation. How much money am I making on that? And have I even made a profit yet? So that is something that you could do. You could do it in QuickBooks, but again, the more detailed you get in QuickBooks, the harder it is to run and the more expensive it gets. I got a couple of questions about how we work and who we work with. I'll go ahead and cover those because they're on the list. I don't want to skip them. Do you work with people who have other taxes other than author stuff, or is it just the author stuff? Yes. Like most of our clients, if not all of them, have author stuff and something else. Maybe there's a spouse with a W-2. Maybe they have real estate properties or investments or other entities or other businesses. We absolutely can do all of that. It's just that we focus a lot of our education and all of our marketing on the author community because I just don't think that these resources are out there for you. And are you based in Louisiana? Yes, we're based in Louisiana. And can we work with anyone outside of Louisiana? Yes, absolutely. So I am a Louisiana licensed CPA, but I can do work for people outside of Louisiana. We have clients all over the country. We've worked in almost every state now. So anytime we work with a state that we haven't done a tax return yet for, we do a lot of research to make sure that we're catching all the little nuances for that state and not missing anything. So we can absolutely work with anyone, anywhere in the country. We even have some clients that are in other parts of the world outside of the United States. So we're very virtual. We're very remote. We can work basically anywhere. Last question. Why does the tax percentage stay the same? What they're talking about here was, if you remember back to the Profit First videos, whenever you're putting money aside for taxes, no matter what income level you're at, the suggested tax percentage is 15% across the board, even though other expenses are changing. Why doesn't it change? The simple answer is because it's a guess. It's just a starting point. Your actual percentage might be 20% or your actual percentage might be 10%, but starting with 15% gets us close to where it should be. Another thing to consider is as your business grows, you might have more opportunities for tax planning strategies and for tax savings. And I just find that 15% typically works across the board, no matter if you're on the lower end of the income scale or the higher end. Obviously, there's some nuance there, but 15% is just a great starting point to set money aside for taxes to be prepared for the end of the year whenever you file so that you're not having to scramble and figure out how to pay for that. So those are the questions from NINC. I'm going to start doing some more Q&As like this. We get questions all the time from our newsletter. We have a place where you can ask questions. So if you haven't joined the newsletter, click the link in the description to join that. And maybe once a month, I'll do a Q&A session on here. And again, let me know if you like this. Let me know if you hated it, if you prefer the more polished style with all the B-roll and transitions and stuff, and we'll do that again. If you preferred this, let me know so that I can keep doing it. Either way, I'll see you next time.